Hello and welcome. I am Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior. I'm an attorney and legal coach based here in Seattle, Washington. Welcome to another episode of Guts, Grit, and Great Business. So I am super excited to share my guest with you today. I am introducing Mitchell Levy. Welcome, Mitchell.
Oh, you, good to be here. I was going to say you're welcome, but you didn't say thank you. So
Well,
great to be
thank
here.
you. I am thankful.
Hey,
am
I was going to say
thankful.
we forgot to do the name thing. So I normally do Mitchell Levy, but anytime somebody calls me, that's pretty cool. So
Okay, I have an editor. So welcome to my friend who I'm so excited to introduce you to, Mitchell Levy. Mitchell, so great to have you here.
Heather, anytime I could be in the same room with you, I'm excited about it.
Even if it's a Zoom room, we will take it, right?
Exactly.
Well, welcome. So for those of you listening, Mitchell Levy is the author of 60 books. One of his latest books, Mitchell Levy on creating, it's the book. Okay. One of his latest books, Mitchell Levy on creating thought leaders, helping experts inside of corporations amplify their thought leadership, helps the key staff, leaders, and proactive employees inside organizations internalize and act on becoming thought leaders in consonance with the fast-changing times. A must-read for the success-minded professional looking to reach new heights. He is also the CEO of Happy About and Think Aha, thought leadership publishing firms that help the professional expert become thought leaders in their fields. With over 200 titles across the book publishing arms, Think Aha offers a host of services that help experts turn into thought leaders. He is close to finishing research interviews with 500 thought leaders on credibility and has made a number of interesting observations. He has redefined the definition of credibility, created new words to add to the lexicon to describe credibility, created a credibility sizzle reel, and a course on adding credibility to your LinkedIn profile. Given his focus and ability to clarify your messaging, one of his favorite discussions is to work with the host live to fine-tune their CPOP, CPOP, which you can find out more about. Be sure to visit the show notes. I'll put the link to this. It's mitchelllevy.com/CPOP, but you'll find that link where you'll find the rest of my show notes at legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. So the great thing is that Mitchell and I actually met a couple of years ago on LinkedIn. So I love this conversation because I feel like things have come full circle and we've been able to participate even recently in another group that we both belong to. But Mitchell, I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm so happy to see you. I'm a fan of LinkedIn. I'm a fan of what you do, and I'm really excited to hear about these 500 interviews that you've been doing.
Thanks, man. That was a mouthful on that bio stuff. We need
Holy cow, who wrote that?
I don't know. And we're currently at 850 books published. So it was interesting. It was both a mixture of current and past stuff. So the cool part, once again, on anything you do in life, is what you want to do is spark interest. And if you spark interest and somebody says, "Tell me more," then you get a chance to tell you more. But yeah, we need to make that. I don't have a lot of time left for the interview.
We're done. Thanks, folks. We'll see you next week. Well, I think it's great. I want to hear about Happy About, right? So you've got a Happy About with a registration and Think Aha. Will you start by telling us what those are?
Sure. So I ended up leaving the corporate world in 1997. So we come back to that. But at the time I was running the e-commerce component of Sun Microsystems supply chain, which is $2.5 billion. And I went through a couple of iterations. I was a .com guy, helping companies figure out what does it mean to use e-commerce. And fast forward to 2005, I started a book publishing company. And at first, what I thought is, how do I name the company? And I said, well, what would be my 30-second pitch? So I went through my 30-second pitch, and the key phrase I kept using over and over again, I want our authors to be happy about working with us. I want readers to be happy about reading. I want my people working with me to be happy about work. I'm like, happy about. Is that available? And so I picked up the domain. Originally, it's like happyabout.info and then happyabout.com, and then I registered the trademark. And so that was the initial part of our publishing company. Now, here's what's interesting. When you're doing, my books are 100% focused on business content to allow the author to be a more recognized expert in their space. And I have to tell you, as there are many people who like the phrase happy about, there are others who it just doesn't work for them, right? And so I started creating other imprints in the book space, divisions and imprints. So we did Quick to Publish, we did Superstar Press, 42 Rules. I got a bunch of books under 42 Rules, and I ended up creating an imprint called Think Aha. And Think Aha was a different style of book. That's where we've got 140 bite-sized quotes that actually truly make up the content of the book. And after giving it a lot of thought, it might have been 2, 3, 4 years down the road, I ended up legally switching the name of my company, which is a C Corp, from Happy About to Think Aha, because it just was much more acceptable. So we still have Happy About out there because I got a bunch of books published under that brand, and there are people who just love the Happy About brand.
Yeah.
But for those that want my double fingers, the more serious view of the world,
right.
we do other names.
Awesome. Well, and I think when you and I connected, the Think Aha is what we had connected about and what we had spoken about. Because I remember coming away from that interview going, oh, Mitchell does books in a totally different way than I've seen before in the marketplace. Will you tell us about those?
Oh, so here's what's interesting about books these days. Because the world has democratized book publishing, the world being at this stage, you could almost say because Amazon, but has democratized book publishing. Anyone who wants a book can have one. That doesn't mean they're good.
Right.
It just means anyone who wants a book can have one. And anyone who really works hard, and it's not really too hard, can be an Amazon bestselling author. That said, I still feel the importance of making sure you do it right, making sure that when the book gets in the hands of a prospect, that they look at it and go, wow, this is somebody I want to talk further to. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is those people who are buying books to learn how to do something, typically these are engineers, or if you're in school. But nowadays, if you want to learn how to do something, you're going to go to an online course. So what is a book used for? It is the best credibility piece you could possibly have. And what you want to be able to do is you want to create a book that is beautiful to read, easy to focus on, and then is easy to share. And so when you take a look at the current incarnation, and this is past the time you and I talked, Heather, what we do at the moment, it's a done-for-you book writing service. And so what you have to imagine is 4 months from today, what can happen is you could be an Amazon best-selling author in both hardcover, paperback, Kindle version of your books, and you have spent 10 hours or less of your time. And so how do we do that? I do a 3-hour interview. And what I do in that interview is I pull your genius. And what we do is the writing team, based on that interview, is going to come up with 140 bite-sized quotes. And so what happens, these are aha messages designed to capture somebody's attention. So, if I'm talking about the legal space, it'd be really simple. If you have a website and you're selling product and you're not protected legally, you're stupid. Okay, hashtag I am dumb. And that would be a great, it's probably not the way you'd approach the world, Heather.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? It's what happens is you want to come up with these quotes, these aha messages. My favorite, it's from, I've written, I think 64 books now, maybe 65. The next book that's going to come out is the most relevant, which is on credibility. But I want to give you a quote from one of my books. And it's from the book called, and it's the one I did the TED Talk on. It's called Being Seen and Being Heard as a Thought Leader. And For those listening, I'm actually holding up the book. It's hardcover. It's like, doesn't that sound like it has lots of information in it? And so I often turn to aha number 4, and I love reading this to people.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, good thought leaders are at the top of the mountain. Great thought leaders are at the bottom of the mountain, helping others climb up.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody says to me, hey, Mitchell, tell me, what is thought leadership? Or somebody says to me, hey, Mitchell, how do I be a good thought leader? I might, at some point in time, I'll give them the quote, but I'll ask them, so as a thought leader, are you at top of the mountain or bottom of the mountain? I can't tell you how many people, because of living in the industrial age and where that came from, would say, oh, I'm at top of the mountain. I go, well, you're not really a thought leader, are you? Right? Because thought leadership these days is the confluence between having a group of people who follow you and recognize you, and also a group of people that you serve as a servant leader.
Mm-hmm.
I could speak for an hour in servant leadership, and why do I have to speak for an hour into the book and have all this stuff that people are going to have to muddle their way through, when I could basically say to somebody, hey, if you're a good thought leader, where on the bottom of the mountain are you, and how are you helping other people climb up? And that you could speak volumes on just that aha message. So
Mm-hmm.
guess which aha message of the book gets shared more than any others? And it's that one.
Yeah. Well, I believe it. And I see a couple things from the way that you do your books and you package them is, in some ways you're shortcutting the amount of time that it takes to actually absorb out what I call the golden nuggets, right? From somebody's messaging or like all of their work. You're pulling those out and putting them all together and like making for faster delivery. And this is why I love the aha concept, where people don't have to take 4 hours of a course. They've got this book and they can get a whole bunch of these powerful little concepts. Really as quickly as they're able to read them.
Yeah. And so what we've done is we have color on the inside. It's expensive to print, but it's not about making money per book. It's about having the book in the hands of your prospects so
Mm-hmm.
that they go, hey, this is an expert. Maybe I need to hire them for, and fill in the blank, consulting, speaking, whatever that is. We also have QR codes in our books, and the QR codes point to the author talking about that section of the book. So what's fascinating is you can now just read in what you said, the aha messages. You can
Mm-hmm.
share them. And I have a platform that makes it easier to share. I'll come back to that. And you could also click on QR codes and hear the author directly, because you know what? We just don't learn from a two-dimensional reading. We learn from listening. We learn from seeing kinesthetically. How does it feel, right? Visually, how does it look? Just to make it easy to share content as well, I have a platform called Aha That. Aha That has close to 1 million users. We have over 50,000 Aha messages. And so you sign on Aha, that's free to use, free to share. And you click on an Aha message and you say, share on Twitter or share on Facebook or share on LinkedIn. And it's that easy to share content. And so authors who are using the platform are now using it in such a way where their content is now easy for them to share themselves. We also have a WordPress plugin. So you could take the WordPress plugin and take the book itself and have those aha messages sitting on your webpage, your WordPress webpage, so that when people come to your website, they actually can see those messages and they could share it directly from your page.
Mm. So in hearing all of this, I just get the sense of how much effort and work you have put into this whole concept of supporting people with their credibility. Why do you care so much about credibility?
I don't think anyone's ever asked that question. That's a great, great question. It turns out that the fundamental tenet, the way I've redefined credibility. So the fundamental tenet of living a good life is living a credible life.
Mm,
And so I'll say this is right now, when you look at the dictionary definition of credibility, what it says is that it is the demonstration of trust, the demonstration of trustworthiness. And what I'm going to argue is that's only 1/3 accurate, because credibility is a lot more than just demonstrating trust. And trust, typically, if you think about it, is is part of integrity, authenticity, vulnerability. That's really what the demonstration of credibility means today.
Mm-hmm.
It also is, and I'm going to say the credibility definition is only 1/3 accurate. The other 2/3, it should be the demonstration of know, like, and trust. And so when you think about know, it's not just that I know of you. Heather, what's important is that I know your intent. I know your commitment. I know your integrity. So when you and I talk and you say you're going to do something, I get to know immediately whether or not that's going to happen or not. That's part of your credibility. The same thing on like. Do I like you and not like you? Right? So you can be credible and not liked. I just may not want to do business with you. On the other hand, if you're not trustworthy, you're definitely not credible, and I won't be doing business with you. So what's appropriate? We lived in a society before the industrial age. And that society, the way I like to classify it is simply the village economy. So when you lived in a village, here's what's happening. If a particular proprietor of the village did something wrong, like let's say the baker was baking goods and it got a couple people sick, the police aren't going to come by. What's going to happen is the village, not any one person in particular, will self-correct.
Right.
And if it continues going wrong, what happens is the village will ostracize. Okay, we entered this industrial age. The entire planet got screwed up because we cared more about the company. We cared more about profit. We cared less about people. We didn't care about the person at all. We cared about the company making money. And it caused, and so if you fast forward to where we are today, by the way, we're still in the industrial age. We just have
Mm-hmm.
technology.
Mm-hmm.
Our educational system is screwed up. The workforce is screwed up. How we're evaluated and everything is all messed up. And then all of a sudden we hit this Corona thing that caused everyone to take a office break or a sit down break, a powwow, right? And what happens is we're looking back and we're saying, I don't think I like the world we're living in. When I get a chance to go back to work, do I really want to? Can't I work from home, assuming I like what I do, right? So what happens is all of that has to do with credibility. And as
Mm-hmm.
we move to where we need to go, so everything goes in cycles. We were in a village economy, or basically the village way of doing business. We hit this industrial age. Where we're going to be moving is into a global village. What does that actually mean? Well, the same thing applies. If somebody is a vendor and they're doing a great job, more people are going to hear about them. If somebody starts doing things that are bad, the global village itself would either self-correct or ostracize. What does that mean? Well, that means that you can't hide from being a charlatan. That means you can't hide from making promises that are not good. That means that you need to be able to look somebody in the eye and shake their hand and go, "This is the deal." And of course, we finalize that with contracts, but the contracts that come in basically just say what we did our deal on. And what happens in that world is it's a world of credibility where you just look at somebody, they're credible. You've seen what they've done with your friends. You get to hire them and you get exactly what you want. And you know what? Life becomes a whole lot better. And so in terms of the movement to the global village, credibility is a key component to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And I think that you're right. Credibility is everything you described, the know, liking, and trusting of that person, and being able to establish credibility is critical. And you look at the online world, and I've told people for ages, right? The online world is the Wild West of business. I've got a couple questions for you. One, is this focus for you around credibility? Is it about supporting good people? Is it about supporting good people in entrepreneurship? Is it about supporting relationship building and the relationships that come from that? Like, what is the be all end all for you?
Well, I'll tell you where it came about. So
Mm-hmm.
here's the origin story. So between 2005 and 2017, I published over 800 books. And what I realized towards the end of 2017, so I did a TED Talk, it started me thinking about the world in a different way. And I realized that I was actually serving the wrong audience.
Mm.
The wrong audience for me were the people who were actually spending the time to write their own book. The way the world was going with democratization of what's happening is people would spend their time writing the book. They would hope that their book would solve world hunger and that everything would come their way and they'd be happy. And what happened is I was disappointed with A, the people who didn't do a good job marketing their book afterwards, and B, the people who said they were going to do a book but never got to it.
Mm.
So I then created a writing school, started hiring people, and that's when I created the Done For You book writing service. About 6 months or so into that, I realized that the title that I was using for me wasn't going to work. And it was thought leader architect. Like, who knows what a thought leader architect is? Apparently nobody, because I couldn't get anyone to recommend me. They liked the AHA guy. They liked a lot better, but thought leader architect they didn't like. So I went to a branding exercise and came up with a term, because I've been doing thought leadership for 30 years. I came up with the term global credibility expert. And I was using that term for about 3, 4, 5 months when I realized I wanted somebody to say, yes, Mitchell, this is you.
Mm.
And so that's when I came up with the concept of, I just thought Napoleon Hill, 500 millionaires think and grow rich. Mitchell Levy, 500 thought leaders. And at the time, I didn't know the title of my book.
Yeah.
The title of the book that I had up until last week was For Humans That Want to Be Seen as Credible. What I'm going to call, that'll be my subtitle. The title of the book is going to be called Credibility Nation.
Mm.
And what happens during the interview is I'd meet these people who were just, I think everything I've done in life, to go back to your fundamental question, was how to help people be better at what they do.
Yeah.
Whatever that might mean. So when it was during the e-commerce days, I was an e-commerce consultant going into companies, letting them know that I'd go to the CEO, VP of operations. I go, there's this new technology. It's going to allow you to talk directly to your customers. It's going to allow you to take your content from your subcomponent manufacturers and ship those products directly to your customers. I actually was walked out the door by some VP of operations who said, this is not going to happen. The internet's a fad, right? And so that was one thing. And on the book side, the truth is it's not about a book. It's about what the author's going to do with a book.
Mm.
So what's interesting about the credibility interviews, and I didn't know this up front, is it sounds like a podcast, right? It sounds like, and we do a vlog and we share. One of the cool things that happened is the content that we create, not just the videos, but also we pull for every 6 to 8 minute video, we pull 10 aha messages. We share those for the next 5 to 10 years. So
Wow.
if you're on the show, you get shared for a long time. What's interesting is, although it's disguised as a vlog, as a podcast, what it really is, it's an opportunity for the person who comes online to get clarity.
Mm.
And it starts with a term that you read in the bio, CPOP, customer point of pain.
Yep.
And so what I'll say is, and for those that are interested, you could take a look, mitchelllevy.com/CPOP. You could read about it. And what's interesting is I used to say that the value proposition is bad and the CPOP is better. I'm going to change that thought process. The value proposition is great. It's just not the first words that come out of your mouth, right? Because Heather, the first, when you say your value proposition, you typically say, I do this or we do that, which sounds a little salesy. And there's a percentage of the population that when you sound salesy, they're not going to listen to anything that comes next.
Right.
So keep your value proposition, but I want you to put 2 steps before that. The first step is your customer point of pain. What it shows is that you understand the customer community you serve and what their pain point is, right? And so for me, it's simply humans that want to be seen as credible. What I like about that one, it's both aspirational and a pain point at the same time. One of my friends, I've known her for 10, 15 years. Until we did the interview, I didn't know her CPOP because she never talked about it this way. It turns out her CPOP is global supply chain panic.
Mm.
Right. A guy I did the interview of this morning, really beautiful. Thought leader, digital confusion. Right. So what a good CPOP is who do you serve and what is their pain point? And if you want to do is make that 10 words or less, and it should be shareable, memorable, and begs the question, tell me more.
I love that. Yes, because if people are messaging the right way, right, it's the hook. It draws somebody in rather than repels them or gives them everything they need in one swoop. What in doing, because I think before we got started, you mentioned that you've done 400 and however many interviews, right? You're nearing the end of that 500. What have you learned from doing those interviews? Have there been any surprises or new ahas for you?
Oh, shocking. So I'll tell you the biggest surprise. When I first created the interview structure and approach, what I didn't realize, I needed to keep track of when people actually showed up and whether or not they were prepared or not when they showed up, and also whether or not they communicated effectively.
Right.
Surprisingly, so let me give you this number because it's going to kill you. 474 interviews done so far.
Congrats.
Oh, thank you. It's very cool. But here's the number that's going to kill you. 4% of that number, when they're being interviewed by the global credibility expert, think that it's credible to come after the half hour for a live show when they're talking about their credibility.
Say that again. What does that mean? Come after the half hour?
Oh, so typically if I have a show at noon,
Mm-hmm.
I send them a 13-minute video on how to prepare ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
I send calendar messages that say, oh, by the way, please come 10 minutes before because I'm doing back-to-back interviews. And instead of coming, so what happens is,
Do you mean they're just missing their time? They're just missing their time slot? They're
instead of
showing up
coming
a
at
half hour
12, they
late?
come at 12:01 or 12:03 or 12:04.
Oh.
So what happened is, and by the way, if you're a salesperson and we have a meeting and you come late, guess what you're not going to make? You're not going to make a sale. Not only you're not going to make a sale then, you may never make a sale with me ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've disrespected my time as a human,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what I came up with, Heather, is one of the demonstrations of credibility is to show up when you show up. What does that mean? Come early, be prepared, and come with your heart.
Yep.
And once again, shockingly, I have 5 questions. It's the same 5 questions. You could watch past interviews to see how people have done. You could watch a 13-minute video on how to prepare. And this is not like any other podcast, right? This is not like any other set of interviews. So you got to prepare. 98% of people do not have their CPOP when we first talk to them.
Wow.
So what happens is I do a little, because what we've not been taught on how to focus on shortness, on brevity, right? It's just, it's not what we go to school for. And so what's interesting is being able to listen to somebody and go, and this is where I do have a superpower, is clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And is to be able to give somebody a CPOP that is so powerful. And it's particularly if they spend time preparing for it, but they still don't get it, that is absolutely beautiful. Because now we'll drill it home. Once you have a good customer point of pain, your LinkedIn profile, your website should be search engine optimized landing pages for your CPOP. Right.
Yes.
And you say that, you're like, oh, now I know how to fix my LinkedIn pro. Of course you do.
Right.
Right. And a lot of what I do is not, it may not be like how to build a rocket ship to the moon. What it really is how to give yourself the power, the tool set, so you can help yourself or have somebody help you so that you even know what they're doing. And so, Heather, I guess I was shocked that people would come late. I was shocked that people would show up and not prepare. The biggest shock is when somebody gave me their CPOP and it was their, it should be 5 seconds at most. And somebody gave me their CPOP 30 seconds long was their value proposition. And so I said, so can we shorten it a little bit, right? And he he shortened it by like 5 seconds. I said, so do you mind if I do a little bit of coaching? And he's the only one who said this. He goes, yes, I do mind. You have your way of doing things and I have my way of doing things. And I don't think, I want to do it your way.
Mm.
And I'm like, so here's where, by the way, I learned a very interesting technique. Instead of saying what was on my mind, which was not positive, I just let there be about three or 4 seconds of silence until he said, I don't think it's going to work out, is it? And I said, no, I don't think so, but best of luck with everything you do in life. And then I hung up the thing and I wondered to myself, how many people hire somebody like that who's completely uncoachable? Because that's not, in the world of credibility, you could learn from, if you're a grandparent today or even a parent today, you're going to learn from your kids about technology. You're going to learn from many other places, but you're also going to learn from your kids. And if you don't recognize that every potential opportunity for interaction is an opportunity to learn and grow, you're missing out on so many things. And so another shock for me.
Interesting. Well, and so much of this, I mean, still it boils down, like when I hear all of this and the idea around credibility, like so much of it is really about our messaging and how does it land with the receiver, right? Do they get it? Are they hearing us? And I agree, people generally have a hard time condensing down what they do, who they serve, down into the golden nuggets. And obviously one of your skills is brevity, just based on the way that you put your books together. So I love what you do, and I love the effort and the irony of making things shorter, right? There's that famous quote about, like, I would have written a shorter letter, but it takes too much time. I think that's the struggle that people have. Like, how do you condense something down if you don't have the time that it requires to really be thoughtful about it? Talk to us, and I'm going to switch gears here. Talk to us about the concept of cred dust. What is it? Why are you so enamored with it? What is cred dust?
Well, so it's one of those things. I was talking to David Meerman Scott. He's the guy who invented the word newsjacking. And I go, David, so he's one of the guys we interviewed. Great interview, by the way. And I go, David, how do I get known globally for credibility? He says, invent a word. And I go, immediately I knew the word. I said, cred dust. He goes, no, Mitchell, it took me 6 months to do mine. I said, no, I just don't know if it's 1D or 2. So if you're curious, you can go to creddust with 1D, CREDUST.com. And he said, invent a word, don't put a copyright on it, don't put a trademark on it. Just make sure when people look for it that they're associated with you. And then at some point in time, enough people use it, will get put into the Oxford Dictionary. So that's one of the goals, is to have a couple of words added to the Oxford Dictionary. Cred dust is one of them. Cred dust is simply the sparkle that happens when you share somebody else's credibility. And that sparkle happens on both the other person and yourself. So by having a podcast, by bringing people online, Heather, you are spreading cred dust.
Got it. But I love it. It's about sharing other people's credibility. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, think about our joint friend, Jay Frissett, when he stands on stage. Mm-hmm. How many times I've heard him say good things about you, right? What is he doing? He's spreading cred dust. It's beneficial for him because he knows you. It's beneficial for you because he's on stage, a position of power, right? And he's actually sharing his cred dust with you, and everyone wins. And sometimes it's even shocking when somebody from stage says, oh, by the way, you have legal needs, you got to talk to Heather Campbell. How many people come to you just because Jay gave you a couple seconds from stage? And we do it all the time. We just never had a name for it before.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So how's your mission going to share that word around? Have you been, do you see an uptick in it being used?
Oh, it's funny when people use it and say it. What I haven't done yet is gotten any major pubs writing about it. So I just haven't, I haven't spent the PR energy yet. So we'll make that happen.
That'll be next. Oh, that's fun. Well, and on the topic of brevity, I know that one of the areas of expertise that you can share with us, and for people listening, who are struggling to know how to focus their efforts on social media and how to do it in just a few minutes a day, right? How can you effectively do social media in 5 minutes a day?
Oh, absolutely. Happy to share that. And by the way, if you're curious, I'm happy to do your CPOP live, if that's something that's of interest to you. So here's what I'm going to say. Social media is 2 words. It's social and media. And when everyone was given a camera and a microphone, one of the initial things, it's sort of like if you have a 2-year-old and you're walking around with your 2-year-old in a place that has a public broadcast system, and the person who owns the microphone hands the microphone to your child, and you're sort of screaming to yourself, please don't do that. What do they say? Hey, me, look at me, hear me, right? I mean, that's what people do. Well, guess what happened when everyone got a microphone and a camera? They talk about themselves. And people don't want to
If
hear.
they get on, right? If they get on.
Yeah, well, of course. So the thing is, social media is 2 words. And if you think about practicing social media appropriately, the word social should have 80% of the focus, and media is 20%. So how do you do social media in 5 minutes a day?
I love that.
You wake up in the morning and you spend 1 minute spreading cred dust. You basically spread in 1 minute sharing somebody else's credibility. And listen, if you went to ahathat.com, I have 50,000 aha messages you could share other people's cred dust. Or if you read an article or see in a newspaper or see somebody's web, whatever it is, good YouTube video. Wake up in the morning and spend a minute sharing somebody else's content. Come back a couple hours later and spend the 4 minutes, the 80% of your time, touching the people who touched your content. Right? Just even if you just said
social
thank
part.
you,
Yes.
or responded to them or whatever it is, what happens is, if let's use the physical example, you're in a physical office, you send stuff to the printer, and somebody picks it up and brings it to you, or it's the morning time and somebody sees your coffee cup is empty, they bring you a coffee cup. Well, what happens if normally what most humans are going to do is going to say thank you, right? Well, what happens you don't say thank you, and they do it the second day and you don't say thank you, and maybe you do it a third day and they don't say thank you, they're not going to do it a fourth day, right? It's just simply, it's just so obvious when I think about it that way. And so it's not about how much you share, and it's not about all being original content. It's about you being able to have interactions, social interactions with other people, sharing the type of stuff that's important to you, because it allows you to attract the people to you that are like the same sort of things you like.
No, I love that. And I think bringing it to life with that real life example, it's so clear to me. And actually LinkedIn is a perfect platform to use as an example when somebody does it the wrong way. And I think I mentioned to you, like, I've crafted my own little system on LinkedIn, but I care very much about treating people the way that I would treat them in real life. Like, hi, who are you? What do I need to know about you to be a great connection? Not me, here's my stuff, go look at this website, and it's so irritating to connect with somebody on LinkedIn and then suddenly have all their stuff shoved in your face through your messenger, or suddenly you're added to their email list, right? Without asking to be there. And I just feel like people are really forgetting that human element of, like, how would I treat this person if I was sitting across the table from them or sitting face to face and actually having a real conversation. So I love that approach to social media and how to do it the right way in 5 minutes a day. Let's talk about one more thing before we sign off. And I feel like this word gets thrown around a lot. Thought leadership, right? Being a thought leader. Will you tell us what that means to you? What's your definition of thought leadership or being a thought leader?
It's a really fascinating word. So by the way, we can do your CPOP offline too, but I'm excited about doing a
Are you
customer
okay? So
printing with
really
you.
quick,
So.
I didn't know if your offer was for me directly or if you were saying to listeners that you
Oh,
would do
no,
their CPOP on a
no.
call.
For listeners, go to the website we mentioned earlier, but I'll do it with you, Heather, And then
Sure.
I'd love people to go to the course that we created, because it's a 1 hour course that completely changes how they think about. All right, so here's thought leadership. By the way, think about your CPOP. It's less than 10 seconds who you
And
serve. So I'll
right, and really quick, I just want to be really clear for people listening. Don't gloss over the part that Mitchell just tried to slip in about a course that he's
oh
providing on LinkedIn. No, because I'm really committed. LinkedIn is a fabulous platform, and if people can make the shift to using it the right way, I'm just a huge supporter of that, right? So make sure that you check out all of Mitchell's links in the show notes. I'm going to list them all, including, his cred dust, the CPOP stuff, all of that at legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. Okay, Mitchell, go.
All right. And for the course, you can just go to credibilitynation.com and you'll see the LinkedIn course. So we'll do thought leadership, and then we'll do your CPOP, and then we'll sign off. So thank you. So thought leadership is very simple, and it's very similar to nowadays. I'm using credibility because it's easier to wrap your arms around. Thought leadership is simply that you have one or more people who are following your thoughts, right?
Mm,
So what we used to think thought leadership is we'd stand on top of the mountain and we'd get the world to follow us. But if your community is much smaller than that, why do you care about anyone outside your community to actually see you? And the answer is you really shouldn't. So why spend money doing Facebook ads to Ohio if you're in Florida and you're never going to actually go to Ohio, right? So so the thing that's important is a thought leader is someone who is, and I've got, on the Think Aha website, I actually have a definition of the word thought leadership. So it's a 2x2 focused directly on what is a thought leader. Essentially, it is somebody who is knowledgeable in a particular space, and they have a following that follows them in that space. And if you look at or remember the AHA number 4 I mentioned before, the following, it doesn't mean they're on top of the following. It
right.
probably means they're at the bottom of the following, helping push everyone up the mountain, right?
Yes.
And so it's people who care about what you say in your focused area.
Mm.
So what you need to do to be both credible or to be a thought leader is, in essence, pick a lane and be good at that lane. And that lane, now we go back into the CPOP, is what is that for you personally, Heather? So here's the definition of a CPOP, customer point of pain. Who do you serve?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you could do it quickly. And then what is that primary pain point?
Yep.
So how would you say yours if you serve? Who do you serve?
So I serve what I call information entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, online educators, speakers, authors, people who are in the online space, and their businesses and all their services are really primarily built around their information, a body of work that they've created, right?
Okay. That sounds great. And then what is the pain point they have?
Well, I help them to stop wandering around in the dark and trying to make legal decisions without a map.
And
Right?
what does that mean?
What does that mean? It means that people typically, first of all, they're not well served by the traditional legal industry. The barriers to entry are very high. Most people don't go there in this space to get their legal needs met in a timely manner, but they're trying to prioritize their business needs and legal needs without understanding what the full range of needs are and how their priorities rank compared to other needs. And so it's really education first. I give them the information that they need to become a more strategic version of themselves that will lead their business by making successful decisions in the legal arena that will actually support long-term growth,
Got
short-term
it.
and long-term growth.
All right. And so normally, by the way, you gave me a vision of your CPOP, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. And I'll share that to you with a second.
Awesome.
But what's interesting is normally what would happen is I have 2 other questions that help reinforce the CPOP. It's what do you do? So what are your services? And then how you have credibility to do what you do.
Yep.
But because of our limitation of time, I'm going to give you a CPOP, just something to think about. And then you could make a decision of, is this good or do we change it slightly? But based on what you said, what I would say your CPOP is information entrepreneurs who are legally clueless.
Right. It's very spot on. Most are, ironically.
And so one of the things that happened, remember the movie Clueless, which had women with blonde hair. So you can do your icon with, information entrepreneurs with a blonde wig on. Actually, that would probably cause problems. But, you know, the thing to think about is when you say something like that, information entrepreneurs who are legally clueless, what is the first thing that somebody tell me more? Or I'm not clueless, right? Or right. And basically what it does is it's giving you permission for the next thing you say. And I started before, but we'll finish up. The next thing you say should be, what do they want? So it's typically that program name. So I have a 5-week legal to unclueless, legal to informed, right? Or it could be the annual have a lawyer in your pocket, right? So that's what do they want. And then the third thing you say, that's where your value proposition comes in. And your value proposition, obviously you tie in the first two.
Right.
I work with information entrepreneurs who are legally clueless, who want to have a lawyer in their back pocket, right? And then all of a sudden it's like you've walked down the path properly. And that's it. So what does credibility mean? That you've taken as little time as possible to demonstrate to somebody that you're smart and good at what you do, and they want to ask you the question, tell me more.
Well, and I love that because you're helping people connect the dots between the key part of the messaging that has to land.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, sorry. I'm shaking my head because we're on video as well, but yes.
That's right. With the deponent, please use verbal. I know, verbally acknowledge yes or no. I'm kidding. Oh, well, Mitchell, this has been fun. I mean, you obviously are an expert at what you do. I feel like this could go on, and we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. What final thoughts do you have to share with people today before we sign off?
You know, because we all had to take a time out around the world, because we've all had an opportunity to view who we are when we wake up in the morning and what we did in the past day to day. And for some of us, for me, I've worked out of my house since 97. Life is the same, right? And for my family, it's the same, but for many, it's not.
Right.
And what I'm going to say to you is, if you're sitting there thinking, I did not like my life in the past, what I'm going to say is, don't wait for somebody to fix it. That's your job. So figure out where you have passion. Figure out where if you don't like the word thought leader, figure out where you're an expert at a particular area, and then figure out what is the best way to test drive whether or not this is a business you could be in. And the type of stuff you do, Heather, in terms of that legal stuff, so that people become unclueless on that sort of word, learning from a Heather on who she is and what she does and what you need to do. But the short answer is, if you want to take a stab at being an entrepreneur, and by the way, everyone is an entrepreneur, even if you work inside a company or you're an intrapreneur, you want to take a stab at it, figure out what you're good at, and go to one of your friends and say, hey, I'm interested in trying this. Do you mind if I do this particular one for free? Your cost is a video testimonial. And then go to the next one saying, okay, here's my video testimonial. What would you want to pay? Go to the next one. Okay, somebody paid this. What would you want to pay? So in essence, don't wait until somebody to anoint you with what you're doing next in life. Right. It's now time to figure out what excites you, where your passion is. And if you could tie your passion into what you do and who you are, it shows. For those people who are doing that today, when I look at you, man, I just so adore every conversation, because you love what you do and you love being a mom. And there are other aspects of Heather. Same thing for me. There are other aspects of me. And it's just, I can only say the word beautiful. It's actually beautiful when you've actually been able to do what you love doing. People appreciate it. You get paid for it. And you wake up every morning thinking it's not a job. This is fun.
Well, I love that. I mean, in a nutshell, that last minute of what you said is why I do what I do, right? If we can create a whole industry or group of people that are better at what they do and more successful at it, they thrive, their families thrive, their communities thrive. They're able to give back and have influence in the world in the ways that they maybe were not able to before. And that is, to me, what the path of entrepreneurship is all about, and why I do what I do is I love supporting people to create that beauty of like living really on purpose and living from their strengths. So I hear you, and I love that as a final point to wrap up on. Where
Super
do you
cool.
Yeah, and I'm so excited. I'll share all of your links with folks. Where do you like to connect? I'm going to guess that it's on LinkedIn, but if people are listening to you and
Oh,
like, awesome, I want to connect with Mitchell.
Oh, absolutely. So feel free, of course, feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. And by the way, if you're going to connect with me, particularly if your LinkedIn profile sucks, make sure you say, I heard you with Heather Campbell, because otherwise, if it sucks, we're not going to, I'm not going to accept it. But probably the best way is mitchellevy360.com. So that's my name, MITCHELLLEVY 360.com.
Yep.
What'll happen, you'll get access to the course, you'll see video testimonials, and you can connect to me on social media. And if this was interesting enough for you, if you say, oh my God, I need to, and fill in the blank, I need to have 100 people in my company take the course, or I need to have a book with you, you have access to my calendar, book time directly on my calendar there. So that's mitchellevy360.com.
Awesome. And I will include that in the show notes as well for a place for people to connect. Thank you, Mitchell. I'm so glad that you were able to join me today. It's always good to connect with you, and I'm sure that we will have you back and you can join in and share. I'm curious, right? Once you complete the interviews and what's coming next for you, I look forward to learning more about your journey and supporting you in the process. So,
Oh, thank you so much. I can only say I've learned so much, and there's still more to learn, and I'm excited to share. Credibility is a beautiful word to be focused on. So
oh,
thanks,
I
Heather.
love
Thanks for
it.
having me.
Thank you.